Hello, welcome back to the Change Person episode. And this time, and like every time you expect when you watch, you expect amazing story that God is written in different people's lives. But this time, the difference is, and the relationship I am with our guest today, Tiki, and we not know each other for really long, but our relationship is like built from even before we know. And so it's amazing. And we are not only friends, we serve the Lord together every single week. We just talk about she forgot to buy the whipped cream and put on my face. So now, and I want you to hear her story, amazing story, and with an amazing person I know. So Tiki, first I want to know, and you have a time, do you have a time you do not really know Christ, or you don't even, maybe you think you know, but find out, I really not know, and you're still living in the way that Tiki want?
So, I guess there would be two different sections of that. I've known about God. I don't ever remember not being in church and that kind of stuff. But my parents weren't Christians for a long time, but my grandparents always had us in church. We lived with them for a short period of time. My dad went to jail, got saved in jail. Crazy story. We ended up moving to Louisiana, and he took over as pastor there and down there. That's why we moved there. But I would say so much of my early faith, I prayed for the first time when I was probably 8 or 9. But I think that so much of my early faith, I didn't understand everything that I believed. So much of what I believed was my parents' belief, was because of what they did. I guess I don't totally know how to phrase that, but there was so much that just, I didn't know myself, you know? I couldn't have told you why I did what I did. The answers that I had for specific things were because of them. And then there came a period in my life when I found a guy and I really liked him, and my parents didn't want me to date him. And there was a really rocky part of my life where long story short, I ended up running away from home and marrying him. And I didn't talk to my parents.
It's the guy I know
It's
now.
Will. Yeah. Yeah, it's Will. I ended up running away from home and we got married.
Thank God you run away with him. I like it.
Yeah, me too. We ended up getting married, and I didn't speak to my parents for probably 2 years of my life. And then when we started talking again, there was so much that we were both raised conservative holiness, and there was so much of our upbringing that we didn't know why. Why did we do the things we do? Why did we believe the way that we believed? And there was a period in our life when we just kind of were like, we're done. We didn't know where to go to church because of the way that we ended up leaving. It felt so many of the people that were part of the church when we were up here at the college, we felt judged by them. We felt kind of ostracized. And so we went a couple different places. My sister and her husband were pastoring down in a little church in Minerva, and we would attend there, especially at night, helped out with kids' church and that kind of stuff. We enjoyed that, but it was just, we didn't fit anywhere. So we started doing some research, and we found a little church out in Sebring Beloit area. And it was a lot of people who had been in the conservative holiness movement who left. And we started attending there and found so much healing, so many answers to things that we didn't ever even really consider. There was so much that we believed that we didn't know why we believed it. And going there and just learning to question and push and that kind of stuff. I always say I don't feel like there's never been a point of my life that God was not part of it. But I think that sometimes I put him on a shelf and he was part of my life and he looked pretty on the shelf. And that is where he was. And when I needed him, I took him down. But I feel like when we started going out to that other church, we found so much healing there.
It's so personal.
Yes, it helped us recognize that we needed to take him off the shelf and put him in the middle of the room. And every part of our life needed to rotate around him. When we did that, and me and Will did it together, because so much of our life, I feel like, was us, our early marriage. There was so much that we disagreed on, so many different things. He was ready to leave the holiness movement way before I was. I had a lot of fear about leaving, a lot of anxiety. And in fact, I say all the time, when he took us to that church for the first time, he took me kicking and screaming, basically dragging. And like, we got there and it reaffirmed it in my brain. Oh my word, they had a coffee bar in the back of the church. That's like, because that was never, you didn't eat or drink in the churches we were raised in. You didn't do that. And so just little things like that, I'm like, no, this is definitely
like opening your eye.
It was, but I felt like this shouldn't be until we got to worship. And the first worship service that we had there, I just felt God's presence so real. And you know me, I'm a crier. It just solidified in my brain, hey, you belong here. This is where I want you. And once we got to that point, once we were able to really figure out what we were doing with our life, put God in the middle of it versus, I don't want to say play acting Christian, because I do feel like God was guiding us and with us so much of it. But at least part of the time, I do feel like some of what we were doing was just acting. Even in like my early teen years and that kind of stuff, so much was an act. I'm sorry, I'm gonna breathe and calm down for a minute.
It's okay. I want to ask one question. Even though when you start, you say, I met a man, a guy I like so much, so I run away. Sounds like it's so flesh. So according to the way that the belief, you are definitely rebellion and disobey, all that thing. Sounds like you are a very worst person according to the biblical standard. But that biblical standard, can I say that is a kind of related to the system that you believe, the setting of that kind of the denomination that you believe.
Yes.
But in the moment you are one away, actually, Will and you both, and somehow actually also the Holy Spirit is actually rescuing you.
Well, I believe that. We both believe that. Honestly, my story and relationship with him has been one of those. We have people, like one of my cousins married one of his cousins. We should have known each other from the time we were little. Like, not only did one of my cousins marry one of his cousins, but his aunt was married to one of my, like, I don't know how I'm related to him, but he was a Malay and my mom was a Malay. There was relation there. I've known his one aunt since the time I was tiny. And I didn't meet him until I was probably 15 or 16. And when we first met, there was nothing that we did not want to date. There was not attraction. I was asked by we were both in a wedding for mutual friends. And I was asked by his one friend if, I thought he was cute. And I'm like, yeah, but at that time he wasn't a Christian. And I'm like, but I would never date him. He's not a Christian. And he just finally, he found God and that kind of stuff. And it was just, I don't know, it just snapped one day. The first time he told me he loved me, we weren't dating. There's so much of God in our story. And like, my parents didn't think he was good for me. And I probably, as a parent now looking on, seeing what they saw, I would probably be on their side a little bit. I would probably be worried for my child that was dating this bad boy, but it was one of those things. I loved him. There was just so much life that pushed us together. And that's not one thing there's things that I regret. I regret leaving in the middle of the night and stressing my parents out. I think that there were ways that we could have gotten around so much of that. But I do think that he was the one for me. And there's a part of my life that I know for a fact that if it wasn't for God, we might be divorced. Like I don't even say might, we would, just because there was so much hardship when we first got married, because of how we left, because of different things. There was a point where we were roommates. That was it. Like we fought more than we did anything, but God redeemed all of that. And how we grew together. If he had not drugged me to that church and changed who I am, my relationship with Jesus would not be as personalized as it is today. I would still be following so many rules, and that would be what my Christianity would be based on. And that is not what God had for me. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful to be living in freedom and not have to worry about how I dress or what I do, or, you know, and be so thankful that I'm not going to walk out of my salvation. That it's if I say, God, I'm sorry, he knows my heart and he just forgives me like that. I don't have to earn anything.
You know, it's maybe what you just said when made me to thinking about the Bible say God is God of living. It's not for the dead people. It's for the people who are living. And so when you're talking about how much life we are together, and I felt that life, and it's made me thinking about, yes, the decision you make in one way in the moment of time at your age, maybe not the right way to do that, but in somehow God see more than we know. And he, just like he turned, like Joseph said, and he turned everything that the world meant to evil, but he turned it to his blessing and good. I do believe, I know you and Will, and you say him bad boy, according to how long I know him, it's hard to believe he actually ever bad. He's so tender and so thoughtful and so gentle.
Yes.
And that is a beautiful, but anyway, please continue your story. Like after you guys at that church and you change, and what continued to moving you forward, and then how you become who you are today from the relationship with Jesus Christ.
So, well, like I said, once we put Jesus at the center of our lives and started revolving, that was a learning process. It wasn't just an overnight thing. There were different decisions that we had to make and different choices, and so much of life that we lived that we would forget that. But we made mental notes in our lives to try, put him back, put him back, put him back. And that church, we healed a lot there, so much. There was still some things that I'd struggled with. I'm trying to think of how to word this or how to say it. There was so much of my identity that I struggled with, that my last name was a big name in the holiness movement where we were raised. And to this day, my sister will disagree with me on this. So if she's listening, sorry. But Will says all the time, he's like, you guys were the in crowd. If you hung out with you guys, that was like way cool. That was the place to be, that, like that kind of thing. And I was used to people knowing me. When I started going to this other church, it was a lot of people that had left the holiness movement, but they still knew me and they knew who I was. And I feel like specifically there was a couple people who was given preference for, I was just not used to being a nobody. And there was a lot of things that were going on out there, and we just felt led to leave. And that was one of the hardest things that we have ever done, because so many of those people were like family to us, and actually still are, because God has made it so that I can stay in one of the small groups. I'm in contact with several of the ladies that are out there. And it's that is amazing in itself. It's just awesome to me how he worked all that out, because there was so much that I was worried about when we were leaving that I shouldn't have worried about, because he managed all of that and finagled it. And I'm so thankful for that. But he, we ended up going, we didn't totally know where to go, but before we even left that church, we could just kind of felt a pull towards Greenford. And we decided, okay, one day, yeah, we'll head out there. And I think when we officially left that church, we skipped 1 week and we didn't go anywhere. But the next week we ended up going over there, and everything was just affirmed to us over and over and over again. You're here. This is where you need to be. This is what you should do. Like there's so many different things that I couldn't even go into on our first Sunday there. That was just such a blessing. And we ended up actually reconnecting with old friends, and Darren and Shanista Stratton, and Will ended up leaving the job at a company he was at for almost 10 years and going to work for Darren, which everybody told us was insane because he was taking a major pay cut. He had seniority at that company, but it was just so toxic. But again, it was just another step, just another way of God giving us that push. Mm-hmm. And going to Greenford, though, was hard for me in a lot of ways just because I was a nobody. Nobody knew me. And that was so hard because I was not used to being an unknown person. And I look back at that now and I'm like, oh my word, you sound so conceited. But I just, that wasn't a life I ever knew. Mm-hmm. And I dealt with that really hard for a long time. And getting to know people in a big church was really hard just because it's so big. And especially when it's on my own merit, when nobody knows who you are, nobody knows your background, nobody knows where you come from. I struggled so hard with that. And it was just one of those other steps where God said, they don't know you, but I do.
That's beautiful.
Learning who I was in him. Mm-hmm. Not because people knew who I was, not because of what my last name was before I married Will, not any of that, but figuring out who I was in Jesus himself and how much he loved for me, or how much he loved me and how much he had for me that was probably one of the biggest turning points in my life. Besides, I don't know. It was another turning point, I guess. It wasn't the biggest. I don't know if it was the biggest one or not. I'm not sure. But it was one of those things that learning to just that relationship. We had Jesus at the center of our lives. We took him off the shelf, but we still were working on that relationship. And going to Greenford has been so good for my relationship with Jesus. He took us, and like I said, Will's job changed. Our money situation changed, and I was still didn't want to work. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom with my kids, and be able to be there for them. And there was so much that we were just leaning into him. And a lot of change, a lot of things happened. But through everything, Shanista was able to point us to you guys, All in Youth. And you guys have been a big part of my story too. And it's just one of those things that exactly at the time we needed it. He just shifted everything. And I say it's like we're living in a snow globe, and he just took it and shook it upside down, but he settled it. And it's even more beautiful now than what it was before he shook it. And yeah, I'm very blessed to be where I am today, to have the relationship with Christ that I have today, to understand that it doesn't matter how I dress or what I do, it doesn't matter. He sees me. And he loves me. He chooses me.
Yes, and your identity is very firm to build on foundation of Christ than anything else. And so whatever the changing is not impact you anymore, because you know exactly who you are. And Jesus never change.
Yes.
Wow, that is good, so good. And then so a question keep stirring in my heart is, before when you put Jesus in the shell in your previous believing, and then now you have that relationship with Jesus, what's the difference that image of Jesus change?
I think it personified him more. He went from being a thing to
wow, that big a thing
now.
now.
Yeah, now he's And I say, like, we took him and put him at the center of our lives. And I still don't think that was where he needed to be. He wanted to be beside us in every aspect of our lives, inside of us, and it was a step. It was the move, a correct move. He was guiding us. He was walking with us, but he's definitely turned from a thing that we randomly use to, he's my best friend.
So, and now also because of the changing of Jesus Christ, that you change yourself and will definitely change. Like I said, I can't even imagine he can relate it with the word bad boy. But also, is it also change the relationship between you and Will? Like you say before, you are like a roommate, fight all the time.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because there were so many fights and wars that we had at one point in time over stupid stuff. Like, things that didn't even make sense, or we just didn't talk. I would be in a corner reading a book. He would be on the computer playing a game. Like, it was one of those things that we were roommates. Like, there was probably a period of 2 years or so that we were like that. And every marriage has its ups and downs. Every marriage is work. But at the same time, now we very rarely fight. And generally, if we do, it's because towels aren't clean and he needed a towel. And it's not a real fight in that case. It's just like our relationship, our marriage is so much better. It's what I hope my kids look for in a spouse, is what we have now. Yeah. Like, it's so much changed. And all of that is just because of the love of Christ. Because we listen to, I don't know if you've ever heard John Waller's marriage prayer. It's a song. But one of the phrases in the song is, Lord, help me love her more than Lord, help me love you more than I love her, so I know I can love her more. And then she sings it back, Lord, help me love you more than I love him, so I know I can love him more. And I think that's has been the key to everything.
Amen.
Is when there was so much of our early marriage, I think that because I left my family for him, because I had him kind of set up in my life as a God. And humans are fallible. And I think so much of that image was shattered, but we put the pieces back together. And we took 2 kids who were play acting a marriage and turned it into one, the 2 shall become one. And I think that officially happened at some point. I don't know, it just shifted.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And especially you and we are both still so young. I just can't imagine how continue up to that. Yes, it's still very young marriage because you are both young, but you already have 4 kids. I don't know how that keep wanting. Is how God is continue extending the story, and it's excited me because I don't know who will not excited when they see God working. If you're not, and then maybe you are not Christian, sorry. But but I want to say, then you have also 4 kids.
Yeah.
And so is it every kid when they came, is still also in somehow, and God also leading you step by step, and from the older one, maybe you're still fighting to now. And like you say, I come to the point, I know my marriage is also not only my marriage, but also is a demonstration for my children. And what you're changing to impact them?
Well, definitely just, I know that, I would say there was a large part of our life, especially when Cappy and Zoe were young, that, I was not the parent that they needed, for sure. I was young and still going through so many things on my own and was very selfish. And remember one time I went to hug Cappy. She was probably about 3 and she flinched. And that broke something inside of me. And I didn't want that to be the relationship I had with my kid. I was a very yelly parent. I would, was just not who she needed. And that would have been at some of the start of us going to that church and some of that kind of thing. And I said, God, one of the things that I really need you to do for me is change who I am. to be the person I need to be for them. And he did that for sure. I mean, I'm not perfect. I don't think it, obviously no person is perfect, but so much of my life, my kids are a joy. Kathy is my child, and yet she's one of my favorite people in the world. They just keep getting more fun the older they get. They're not an annoying burden to me anymore. And so much of that was just because of God. Like that one song, His goodness is running after me. That phrase, that's probably my favorite song because so much of my life has emulated that. So much of my life, if I look back at it, I don't deserve where I am today. But so much of it has been His goodness running after me. And it's chased me and it's brought me here to where I am. And I'm very thankful for that.
That part I think a lot of people touch because we all been there because there is nothing you can prepare before you are a parent. You never can prepare to be a parent if you are not. And then when you start to become a parent, there is struggle. Like you say, you are finding your identity and you're still finding Jesus. And your husband also still finding himself in Christ. And finally, this 3 parts sounds like it's on the way. And then you need to learn how to Jesus in the center and all that thing. And that's why one very strong thing you said is so good for everyone remember that is Jesus know me. He know why I do that and how I do that. And he know your heart. And then then he will let you know. And then when you say sorry, he just slap and not he slap. He just and done. He forgive you. And I think many parents, especially young parents, hear what you say or ever think, oh, my past, I went away and I will never can get right with God again. I think your story completely break every single lie that enemy told them they can't because you are a example for them. So that's why the reason I want, and around couple minutes left, I think some people like you and in that struggle or right in the struggle, right in the time of a young parent or one away, or maybe they are just part, but they still cannot see what God will for them. Like you do, what encouragement word you can share with them?
I would say don't look back too much, but at the same time, don't hate who you are right now or who you were before, because that person is growing and changing. Give yourself grace. He's given us grace. Take it. Both hands. Take the grace that is given to you because you're going to need it. But He's always good. And yeah, He loves you. Us.
Amen. I want to hug you many times, and then I found I don't have tissue. I can't get up. But
I'm used to not having tissues. I'm a crier. This happens.
Yeah, but I want to tell everyone, Tiki not just come to share with you, hey, who I am, that is my story. Yes, this is. But more important is why she stand in front, even crying, she still want to tell you that. Is to her is a big thing in her life, but she also want that big thing in her life for you. So what you need to do is turn your eye on Jesus. Don't put Him on the shelf anymore. He's not a thing. He's active and alive in your life, and He has a purpose for you. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next one. Thank you.